Welcome to Spotlight TV. I'm your host, Emily Zuby, and I am so honored to have Dr. Michelle Perlman with us today. We always say rock your health, rock the world. She is the CEO and co-founder of Prime Institute and has a wealth of knowledge and information for us. So welcome to Spotlight.
Emily, so much for having me.
I've had the honor of networking with you now, and I've learned so much. I mean, you really are just a breath of fresh air. I love your office space, your center. We look forward to having an event there this month.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to hear all about you, your story, your mission, your vision.
Yeah, and I actually want to start off with, I met you at a mutual friend's birthday party, and one of the guests that was there introduced me to you and said, you have to meet Emily. She is like such a powerhouse. This is a woman you have to meet. So ever since then, you and I really hit it off. And I connected with you after, and I said, you know what? So-and-so said, this is, the person to meet. And it's been such a beautiful relationship after that. So thank you for your friendship.
It's wonderful. And we're so excited to actually have a lunchtime lab and have you as a speaker, because, especially, I always say to everyone, I know people say, your health is your wealth and everything, but, truly it all starts there. Because if you don't feel well and if you're not maximizing or optimizing your health, then the rest of it, isn't possible. So, we're going to hear all about what you're up to, and I expect to learn today.
Yeah. And I think it all goes back to, why does it matter, right? What is our why? And that's really where our mission at Prime Institute and our vision came to be, in that I've been through the gamut when it came to my health and wellness. When I was stressed and I was in medical school, I would go to the nearest grocery store and get a bunch of candy and eat the candy after a board exam. And then I would wake up the next day and my neck was like very sore. And I was like, well, this is odd. Am I developing some sort of condition like fibromyalgia? Like, what's going on with my body? And it took me years to finally figure out, Michelle, when you eat crap, you feel like crap. And I finally turned the corner and said, I was tired of feeling tired and sore. And that's really where my journey began. And then I also used to compete in bodybuilding. So I was also kind of through the gamut in losing 30 pounds, gaining the 30 back. When you gain the weight back and you look normal, it plays mind games because you're used to being at a very lean state. So I've kind of been there, done that with the sports nutrition side, endurance training. And really where I am now is I want to help people feel well, live their most authentic lives, and you can feel your best at any age. Some of my healthiest and happiest patients are my patients in their 80s and 90s, because health is not holding them back. So many of the people here in South Florida, they have the financial means. They have a great family. They want to travel the world when they retire. But what holds them back? They have a full-time job going from one subspecialist to the next.
It's so true. It's absolutely. What would you say is that it's always, whatever age you're at is a good time to start, right? Better start than never. Mm-hmm. But what would you say are the critical years to kind of grab hold of some of those habits in terms of, everyone talks about 50 for women, but what would you say is that prime time to make sure you lock it in?
Yeah, I would say, it's never too early and it's never too late. So the majority of our practice, we see patients actually anywhere from the age of 18 to my oldest patient is 86. But really when women are in the throes of perimenopause, or when they've already gone through that transition and now they're menopausal, that is not the time to make a big change, because your body at the age of 55 is not the same body you had when you were 20 or 25. And we're learning more and more about the changes that happen in a woman and a man's life as we get older, and hormones play such a critical piece. So if we know that every decade of life, we're going to lose aerobic capacity, we're going to lose bone mass, we're going to lose muscle mass, if we know those things are going to happen, then once they already happen, when we're in the throes of menopause, we can't really gain bone strength anymore. We can gain muscle, but we want to make sure we're in the best health possible when we're in our 20s, 30s, and 40s before those rapid changes begin.
That's amazing. We're going to talk more about the menopausal and the changes and everything else. Let's step back and I want to hear your story, your journey. And you have an incredible resume and education and background. So why don't you just tell us a little bit of how this all started? You know, when was younger Michelle saying, this is what I'm going to do in life?
Yeah, you know, I've been kind of all over the place. I've had the great fortune to be able to travel throughout the country and live in very different places. Grew up in Rockville, Maryland. My sister and I both wanted to change, so we did undergrad at the University of Miami. And then that was a little bit crazy in South Beach. And I said, okay, I need a change. So that drove me to actually Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where I did my medical school training. And there was very little distraction there. So that was a great thing. Wake Forest was a wonderful school. And then I had the great fortune of going to San Diego. So no better place to do internal medicine residency for 3 years, where you're on call for 28 hours at a time, and then be able to go to Coronado Beach to relax afterwards.
That's great. So what age would you say that medicine, what age would you say that medicine got on your radar? So it sounds pretty early.
Yeah. So initially, I remember vividly when I was in second grade, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then I actually realized I only like small dogs, and I'm actually very scared of cats. So I figured that was not going to be on my radar. And then I was just always more into science than anything else. And I was very interested in health and wellness. My own journey when I was in middle school is actually when I started going to the gym in the afternoon after school. And that was really my stress release. So I understood the importance on a personal level, the importance of wellness and health and movement and eating good food. And then, bodybuilding throughout that time period. And I realized being in the fitness industry, oftentimes we see so much on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok on social media influencers and people in the fitness industry. I'll tell you from personal experience, some of those moments in my life were some of my most unhealthy moments in life.
Wow.
I probably gave myself kidney failure once or twice, taking so many diuretics before getting on stage. I remember the moment I got off stage, I started chugging water, eating more food, and my legs blew up. I could barely walk for a couple of days. So it's the things that you do that you just don't know any better. I learned, my goodness, I made some pretty interesting decisions, and I learned from that. So I was in San Diego for 3 years. Then I wanted to actually go into gastroenterology. And I had this perception that, I was very into nutrition. And I thought, well, if I become a gastroenterologist, it's the intestine, the stomach, everything from the mouth down to the anus. It must be all about nutrition. And what I learned after 3 years of gastroenterology training is there really is no nutrition component. You learn how to be an endoscopist. So most gastroenterologists make most of their salary from doing procedures, endoscopy and colonoscopy. And that's great. But what I realized through that is that when someone's suffering from heartburn, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, I do a procedure, they wake up from anesthesia and they say, "Doc, why am I suffering?" And I say, "Great news, everything was normal." They're not happy.
Right. Right.
They want answers. They want a diagnosis. And sometimes I could give them a diagnosis. Many times it had to do with 99 other things going on in their life: their stress, their sleep, their relationships, their nutrition, their movement, all of those things. So, yeah.
What's the number one complaint that you get from patients nowadays?
I think nowadays is more weight related. So people come into Prime Institute because they want to lose weight. But believe it or not, I don't sell weight loss. So many of the clinics out there, they're promoting, do you want to lose 10, 20, 30 pounds in a month? Here's the drug for you. I don't actually promote weight loss. I call it more kind of weight management, but really it's all about the foundation. And it's about improving one's cardiometabolic health, because it doesn't really matter what the number says on the scale. So much of my job is actually convincing patients that there is no ideal body weight. And I don't know about you, but every time you go into the doctor, what do? They check your weight. you're rushing, you're probably stuck in Miami traffic. They take your blood pressure. Of course, it's going to be high,
Yes.
And so we're so focused on certain numbers that are taken in a very artificial setting. But also the number on the scale doesn't tell me anything about one's cardiometabolic health. So my goal is I want someone to be their healthiest version of themselves at any age. And so much of that is actually not weight-based, although that's what brings people into my clinic.
What would you say? I mean, because it is such a hot topic now. I mean, obviously, even the comedians and the Grammys and everything, they talk about the, red carpet and the Ozempic look and everything else. What would you say are some of the, I don't know, myths around any of these weight loss and, pros and cons?
Yeah, there's still such a stigma when it comes to obesity in that people think it's a lack of discipline and motivation. And I'll tell you, my patients at Prime Institute are the most successful, hardworking, intelligent people I've ever met in my life. It has nothing to do with laziness. There are genetic components, environmental components. When people are traveling all the time, many people, that I see are in real estate. They're developers, they're attorneys. They have to go out with their clients. There's so many external factors that make it more challenging. That the reality is 90% of people who need to lose weight will not be able to reach the goals they need to and keep it off with diet and exercise alone. We are in such an amazing period in medical history where we finally have tools in the toolbox to help people reach and maintain a healthy weight and, most importantly, improve their cardiometabolic health. That is a beautiful thing, but it has to be done under the correct supervision in the right environment with high touch points, meaning in my prior practice, that's the time that these medications first started coming out for weight management. I was booked out 6 months. So I was not able to offer these high touch points, meaning people would see me in clinic and they'd say, all right, doc, I'll see you next month. And I would have to tell them, I'll see you in 6. We cannot expect our patients to succeed with these medications if we see them every 6 months. So in my current practice, I'm really able to practice medicine how I think it should be done. And I do the initial consultation and I see them on a monthly basis. And you may wonder, what am I seeing them every month for? I'm making sure we're maintaining muscle mass, because that is the key to our health span and longevity and feeling well at 90 is whether or not we can get out of a chair and do the stuff we want to do.
I admire your photos. Like I love your Instagram and, and I see that you do a lot of weight training.
Yeah.
What would you suggest for the person who's maybe, I love to run, I love to dance, I cycle, but when it comes to the weights, I'm having a tough time getting started. What would you recommend to someone like myself where, it's lifting weights is not something that calls my attention.
Yeah. And for so many of my patients, they resist the resistance training.
Yeah.
But it's my job to figure out, how am I going to word it, my messaging, so that it resonates with you at this point in your life, right? So if I say you have to lift weights to have a 6-pack, most people don't care about having a 6-pack. But if I were to ask you, what do you want to do when you're 90? I'm going to ask you, what do you want to do when you're 90?
Yeah. Be as active as I am now.
Yeah. So, some people would say, I want to be able to carry groceries 5 blocks. I want to be able to, walk up a couple flight of stairs. I want to be able to pick up my grandchildren and not be out of breath, right? So then we have to do back calculations. And I love Peter Attia. He has a wonderful podcast where he talks about the marginal decade, and that's the last 10 years of our life. And for most people, it's a really rough 10 years. And we never know when that is going to begin, but when we're in it, we feel it. We do feel it. And so he does a back calculation to say, when I'm at 90, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And if I know that every decade I'm going to lose a certain percentage of my VO2 max, which is aerobic capacity, and I'm going to lose a certain amount of strength, what do I need to be able to do now at the age of 50 so I can do what I want at 90? And I get many patients that tell me they want to do something at 90 that they can't do at 50. So then we have to really have, a discussion on what sort of things they need to do. So it really matters why does it matter to you? And for many people, it's not an aesthetic thing. It's they want to be able to travel the world and do certain activities.
Right.
And that's the way that we have to do the messaging. So it really starts with what are you doing now and how can we maybe make some minor tweaks? If people are not active, I just want them to move their bodies more, okay? So I'm not going to say you need to go to the gym and get a trainer. Maybe just going for a walk for 10 minutes every day is enough for them to start. But for people who are already doing the cardio and they have a hard time implementing the strength training, it may be, just doing body weight exercises. So while you're walking, maybe take a resistance band with you. Find a tree limb, put the band around the tree limb, like with the cables and handles, and start doing some upper body exercises or squats, or you get like a loop band around your legs. Integrate the resistance training within something you already enjoy doing, which is the walking.
That's great. Great tip. So let's talk about Prime Institute.
Yeah.
So you're co-founder with your sister, which, you're a beautiful team. I've seen you in action. Talk about how that vision came together. Like at what point did the both of you say, this is what we're going to do, and had that shared common goal and interest?
It was never in our plan to ever actually live in the same state. She was directing the Men's Health Center at the University of Iowa, and I was faculty at the University of Miami. And it just happened that around the same time, we were just complaining a lot. And we were tired of complaining. And one day, I don't remember what that conversation looked like, to be honest, but I think one day we kind of just said, why don't we just start our own thing?
Just like that.
Just like that. And the reality is we took a huge leap. It was the biggest risk we've ever taken for each of us. We both had a very secure salary in our jobs, but we kind of were at the point where we realized we had job security. We could always find another job if it didn't work out. But what we were currently doing just wasn't working for us at that point in our life. We didn't have kids. We weren't married. If we were going to take a huge leap, we had to do it now when no one else was depending on us. And so we did. And I remember this, I do remember vividly. I had a conversation with my parents and I told them, and my mom made some comment like, what if they offer you more money? And I said, Mom, I make plenty of money. It never had anything to do with, about the money. I just want to practice medicine the way I think it should be done. And I want to have control over my destiny. And I'm going to work hard no matter where I am. But I want to be able to dictate, what that looks like.
And how'd you come up with the name?
So we wanted it to resonate with people. I think when people think of Prime, they think kind of Amazon Prime. So many people have said it's a very generic name, but no one ever has a negative connotation when they hear Prime.
I think of Prime of my life.
Exactly. It's like, it's prime time. It's how do you live your prime life? It's kind of a generic term, but I think it resonates with a lot of people. And we didn't want our name on it because we didn't really know where it would go, whether or not we'd be in multiple states or we'd end up, let's say, hiring additional providers. So we wanted to keep it, our name out of it, actually.
What's your vision for it? We meet up again, and I have you back in 5 years. What will have transpired? Like, what do you see the long-term vision is? Yeah,
I think initially my sister and I wanted to be everything for everyone. And then we realized, no, we're actually really good at what we do, but our goal was to find the other really good people, subspecialists, who are top of their game in what they do. It's really building this community, this network, right? Where if we have a patient who says, I need a female hormone specialist, and I'll say, okay, I don't offer that service currently, but I know the perfect person for you. We as healthcare providers need to be the navigators for our patients. We cannot expect people to Google providers and figure out who is the right fit for them. Why are we surprised when patients go for second and third opinions? Because they can't get a single opinion from someone that they really connect with. So that's really our job as healthcare providers. So it's building that kind of healthcare network, and not just physicians, but also pelvic floor physical therapists and sex therapists and personal trainers and hairstylists, you name it. It's building that community. And South Florida, my goodness, what better place to do that? And then also building out other pillars, corporate wellness programs, research and innovation, bringing in technology with mobile applications. That's where, I'm working with BiteMD with another partner of mine. So bringing in all these aspects and education and outreach. Big initiative of my sister and I.
I was going to ask you about BiteMD.
Yeah.
So that is a partnership as well?
Yes. So that's actually with my partner, Nate Ernstoff. He's a partner at Gastro Health. And we're building out a whole platform that helps people understand how to eat well to feel well. So many of the apps out there currently are focused on macros or calories or weight centric. But the reality is you're not going to lose a pound in a day. You may not lose a pound in a week. People get very frustrated when they don't see those numbers on the scale. It's those micro decisions we make every day, multiple times a day, that we should really be caring about. And people need that immediate feedback to say, you know what, eating the apple instead of the chips, people need to understand in real time how that affects their body. So it's pulling in nutrition and also gastro symptoms so people have a better understanding on what to eat to feel well, to minimize bloating, heartburn, diarrhea, constipation, but they get that feedback in real time.
What's your opinion on intermittent fasting? Because I know so many people, myself included, have been able to ignite weight loss with intermittent fasting. My, family members or people, So what I'm curious what your take on it is.
It totally depends on the person, and it depends what they're looking for. For most people, they need some degree of restriction in order to cut the calories. The reality is most people consume most of their calories not when they're hungry. Usually when they get home from work or after dinner when they're watching TV and they're eating a bunch of snacks, right? So if intermittent fasting gives someone the control to say, you know what, kitchen's closed at 6 p.m., I'm not going to eat until tomorrow at 10, then that's wonderful. We shouldn't be eating after dinner. We shouldn't be eating in bed. We shouldn't be going to a midnight buffet on a cruise. So, but it kind of puts people in that mindset, okay, the kitchen's closed, I'm not even going to walk in there. That is where I find it helpful. Now, for people on these medications like Ozempic, Zepbound, Mounjaro, Wegovy, you got to be careful with that because the reality is we need to get enough protein. So if our eating window is only a 6-hour window, someone on these medications is not going to be able to consume oftentimes the protein they require to maintain muscle in a shorter eating window. So it really depends on the person and the circumstances.
Wow, great. Great information. What about resetting the hormonal balance? Are there magic foods? Are there, you see all these podcasts, especially nowadays, that tell you either the Gundry one or any of these. What do you tell someone who comes in and says, I'm just, starting to feel these symptoms, and what are some of the quick things that, I should avoid, or even with sleep, so many people complain about sleep patterns, right?
The beautiful thing is that whatever is good for the brain is good for the heart, is good for the gut, is good for the genitalia, is good for everything. That's the beautiful thing. So we can get as complicated or simple as people want to get. The reality is, if there's a nutrition label on a product, it's probably ultra processed. There's not a nutrition label on an apple because it's just an apple. But if it's apple juice that has, high fructose corn syrup, there's a label on that because it's ultra processed. There's multiple ingredients. We need to be able to identify the food that we're eating, like sausage or something, right? You can't really figure out what part of the animal it came from. It is ultra processed. We are seeing more and more metastatic colorectal cancer in 20-year-olds without a genetic predisposition. And it's what's changed, not our genetics, it's our environment. And our environment also plays a key role actually on hormones. So my sister sees a lot of young guys actually with low testosterone, lower than we've ever seen before. Whether it's the microplastics or other things will definitely impact that. So from a hormone standpoint, like I mentioned, it all comes down to just eating whole food. It's nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, legumes, beans, foods that are rich in magnesium are very helpful, or really phytoestrogens. So edamame, like soy products, are high in phytoestrogens and flax seeds. So it's understanding how these foods affect our native hormones to prevent some of those rapid fluctuations. But we can't just go on a really good nutrition program for a week and then neglect the remaining 3 weeks of the month. It's all about consistency.
And what a great way to remember that. That was good, because I think sometimes the messaging out there is, oh, let's talk about brain health, let's talk about heart health, and they talk about it all so separate.
Yeah.
But to be able to connect it, what's good for your brain is good for your heart.
Yeah,
I love that.
And that's something I learned as a gastroenterologist, because so many of the times people would come into my clinic and say, "Doc, what's wrong with my stomach?" And of course we would do the evaluation to make sure there was nothing wrong. But the reality is it was a combination of probably 15 different things. When we're not sleeping well, when we have high stress, high cortisol levels, if we're eating too fast or eating too much, if we're taking certain medications, if we're not moving our bodies on a regular basis, some people feel that in their gut. It may not be a stomach problem, but it's 10 other things going on where everything is interconnected. For whatever reason, for really since the beginning of time, we've talked about the brain and the body as two separate things. And my goodness, how far from the truth is that?
And cortisol, I mean, that's a topic that you hear a lot about. What, and all these vitamin K, vitamin D, what do you tell someone in terms of supplements?
Yeah. So I don't oversell supplements. The problem with blood work is it's only taking whatever vitamin is in your blood at that particular time. So if they're not fasting, you may get kind of falsely elevated levels. We also know that certain vitamins, like vitamin A, are stored in the liver. So if I check someone's blood vitamin A, that doesn't tell me someone's total body storage. So unless someone has had some sort of intestinal surgery where I suspect a malabsorption problem, or if they have some symptoms, I don't check like $1 million workup for the vitamin levels. The basic ones I check for would be folate, B12, vitamin D, magnesium, and just a comprehensive metabolic panel. I keep it very simple. And then when I help someone with supplementation, vitamin D, I mean, we live in South Florida. The number of people who have low vitamin D levels is pretty crazy. But doing the combination, like you mentioned, of the vitamin D, like a D3 with K2, the vitamin K actually helps pull the calcium into the bone and not into the arteries. So that's a very helpful one. And also people who are vegan or vegetarian, B12 deficiencies are quite common, but also on these weight loss medications. I've seen quite low B12 levels. So B12 is also another supplement that I commonly recommend.
So much great information. This is your time to give the commercial. So if someone wants to reach you, work with you, you are just phenomenal. Like, you are brilliant. And I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for a couple hours. Best way to reach you?
Well, I wanted to just leave off with, we have incredible control over our health. As much as we think that everything else is out of our control, it's just about taking the next right decision, not always perfect ones. And that's really what we focus on at Prime Institute. So our website is www.primeinstitute.us, and that's the same for our Instagram. And then my personal Instagram is Michelle Perlman, MD. But it's about empowering our patients, empowering the community to make better choices every day, consistently. And although we help the person sitting in front of us, our goal is to help the household and their friends and their family. And it all comes down to the foundation: eating good food, moving our bodies any way that we enjoy, having a really powerful network of people who help lift us up. And that's why I'm so incredibly grateful to be a part of your network, because it's all about helping each other, again, live our most authentic lives.
Well, and I just want to say thank you, because you have come in as a platform partner, or one of our platform partner sponsors for 50 Shades of Pink, which is coming up on November 8th. And, we believe that if you rock your health, you rock the world. And we're just so excited to partner up with you and also feature you as a speaker at our upcoming Lunchtime Lab. You were just fascinating. I'm a huge fan. I love you. And thank you for joining us on Spotlight. And for those of you in our audience, again, you've given all the information how to reach you. We're blessed to have you in the heart of Coral Gables. I've seen your offices. They're absolutely, like, I could sit there and camp out. Really, really, nice offices. And I'm excited for what you and your sisters, co-founders of Prime Institute, are building. So I'm excited to see this, as you grow and have more of our network and our rock stars take part. So thank you for being on Spotlight, and we thank you for joining us. We will be back next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. We go live. A big thank you to community newspapers. That we love being partners with them, and for producing our show. So we will see you next week on Spotlight TV. Thank you.